Hello there, my friends. Today's puzzle is a little bit harder than usual. We are playing white here, and we want to stop this pawn, which is one step away from promotion. But let me just show you what happens if we stop it right away. If we play rook h8 to stop this, we sacrifice the knight, and then we take it. Then we end up in an endgame with a rook versus a bishop. And normally that is a draw. And in this case, this is a draw. There are some exceptions where you can win with a rook against a bishop, but you need to get the black king and bishop into more awkward positions than this. So this is not the solution to just stop it like that. We have to be smarter than this. And the question is, how do we find the winning variation for white in the end? So from here, you can pause the video and analyze this on your own and see if you can find the total win for white in the right variation. Go ahead. Okay, here we go. So we cannot stop this right away. We have to do something smarter. And the key move is knight to b8 check. Let's just see what happens if we check here on c5 instead. Then black will simply play king b5, and when we try to stop this with the rook h8, we cannot take off right away, of course, then he will promote. Well, we gave up the control over the c6 square, so there will be a check here. And when we move the king, well, the bishop controls h1, so he will just promote after that. So this is not a good idea. So instead, we give a check on b8. It's a tempo move, and we also gain full control over the c6 square, which is, of course, very good. The natural response for black, and the only good response, is of course to attack our knight, and we want to put it on b7, so we cannot place our knight here on c6. And now we have to attack this pawn, so we are forced to play rook h8, more or less. Okay, what happens now? You see, of course, I told you we cannot sacrifice this knight, but in this case we can. If black now promotes right away, then of course we simply take it. We lose our knight, but then we move the rook back and we pin the bishop, and it's an easy win for white. So black is not going to be that stupid. He needs to move his bishop first. So he doesn't want to get that out of the way. Okay, what happens now? If black checks here on f7, can you see how white wins from here? We move our king, obviously, and we can move it to either c5 or d6. Doesn't really matter. Look at this, something like this, and then he promotes. Well, the bishop on f7 is still going to be lost. Do a simple check, force the king up, and then we pin the bishop like this again. So bishop f7 is not the best defense for black in this position. Let's see what happens if we put the bishop on g6. Well, then he doesn't move the bishop with a tempo. We have no rush to take this. Now we can simply move away our knight and save it, and then the next move we're gonna attack this pawn, or if he keeps on attacking our knight, we can simply move it again, and then this pawn will fall. Easy win for white. So instead we're gonna look at what happens if black plays his bishop to a4. He can play it to b5 also. It's not as good, and they will both transpose into the same variation. So let's look at bishop a4 right away. Okay, so so far so good. Can you from here see how white wins? It's still a long way to go, so you can pause the video again if you want to and see how you can find a winning variation for white. Go ahead. Okay, welcome back. So now it's too soon. We cannot take this pawn. This is just a draw. Now we will lose our knight, and the bishop is not under attack. The king will come back to seventh rank next move, and we are not fencing in anything, and we are not trapping anything. So we cannot just take here on h2. We need to play smarter, and we need to move our king to c5 because c5 is a much better position. We can attack the bishop. We can also go to b6 if and when we lose our knight. So the king has to move first. Now, and that's why also I'm saying this will transpose into the same position, because if we played bishop b5 first, then we will start with king c5 and then force him here, and then we will take this pawn. And this variation will be the same. He goes here first, we go to c5. Now black needs to sacrifice the pawn in order to get our knight, and it will be almost the same position. The rook will be here, otherwise it would have been to 8 on h2, but it doesn't matter because now we're going to move our rook anyway. From here, there's only one variation that wins again, and we need to attack this bishop, and also we need to put the king stable here on the 8th rank. But we cannot play king b6 first. Again, it's too slow. We need to attack the bishop first, and we do it rook h4. So the bishop is under attack here, and there are not so many squares he can go to. You see what happens if he goes back? Well, again, we simply pin it like this, and we win it. If we place bishop to d7, now it's time to play the king to b6, and we are threatening rook h8. If he moves the king, try to escape, well, it's even worse. Then it's a check, and he has to sacrifice his bishop. So that's not going to work. And if the bishop just goes back, well, then it's a checkmate in 2 moves. And if it tries it like a tempo move like this, we give the check, the bishop comes back, and then we can do a tempo move like this, force the king in here, and it's a checkmate. So that's not a good move for the bishop when we attack. We cannot put it on e7 or f8. We looked at that, and of course these 2 squares are going to be taken. So let's check these 3 squares then. What happens? Well, after bishop b3, it's an easy check, and we just win it. So that's fairly easy. What about bishop c2? How do we proceed from here? Well, as I said, now we got the king to 8th rank. We need to stick him up there on the 8th rank. We need to play king b6 now. We're threatening the checkmate, and really nothing he can do about it. If he moves the king out to escape, then we have to fork here. And we looked at all other things. We've seen this. It's the same here. Tempo move, and the bishop will fall, and it will be checkmate next move. Okay, and from here, let's look at the last option. The bishop goes all the way down to d1. So the plan is for black, when we play king b6, which we will, he wants to play king c8 so he can escape, and he is not in any fork right away. But of course, we check anyway, and if he goes out, well, then there's the fork. So really doesn't work there either. Instead, he has to go back to b8. And now we finish this off with rook d4, attacking the bishop, and at the same time threatening a checkmate. And there's nothing he can do about it. He can play bishop g4 and just sacrifice it. We can either take it or we can just play rook d8 check. Another tempo move. And finally, we win it like this. So I hope you followed all through the variations here. We need to start from the beginning with a check on b8, forcing the black king finally to go down to b8, and our king comes to b6, and then we can trap the bishop in the end. But it's a very, very hard to see from the beginning, of course. I think you have to play on like sixth sense. You know what you want to do. You want to get the king down to the eighth rank. You want to attack the bishop, put it in an awkward place, and then you take the pawn, and then you maneuver from there, and finally you win this as white. Thank you for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day. Bye bye.